Turn our attention to this now. The Constitutional Court will this morning hear Public Protector Busisiwe Mkhwebane's application for leave to appeal the dismissal of her report into President Cyril Ramaphosa's CR17 campaign funds. Now, the High Court had previously ruled against Mkhwebane's report into the CR17 campaign. Mkhwebane found Ramaphosa had deliberately misled Parliament about the 500,000 Rand campaign donation from Bosasa. Now, joining me is former DA leader and someone who raised the campaign funding issue in Parliament at the time that he was with the Democratic Alliance. Today, he is, of course, the One South Africa movement leader, Mmusi Maimane. Mr. Maimane, thank you very much for making time to talk to us. One thing that I think the country has still wondered about is how you stumbled upon this information about the 500,000 Rand donation that was made by Gavin Watson, the late Gavin Watson, to the CR17 campaign.
Good morning, Tolly, and good morning to fellow South Africans. I mean, I think in the nature of public work and public service, citizens have the right to raise concerns. And at the time, another South African who I would deem as a whistleblower, would be unfair of me to name them on this show, said to me that, listen, I have a concern about this donation that has been facilitated, and then handed over the documentation. And at first, in answer to the question, you will recall that it was a donation that was not only about Cyril Ramaphosa, but it was also had to do with his son's businesses. And I initially had raised the concern on Bosasa. It was extraordinary for me that, you know, you had the debacle with Arthur Fraser, with a new president giving him effectively a safe landing in the Department of Correctional Services, etc., etc. And this raised concern. And as a public servant, I thought it was important to ask the question. And then, of course, the president then returned later to say, actually, it wasn't any with his son. It became about this campaign funding question. But I still maintain that at one level, that's one issue.
Yeah.
But at a broader level, it's about accountability, and accountability of the president must be paramount in this issue.
Yeah. Of course, matters have since moved quite dramatically. Mr. Maimane, we even have a judgment now from the Pretoria High Court that set aside that report and its remedial actions. Talk to us about what you made of that ruling from the High Court in Pretoria. Perhaps firstly, did you agree with Mkhwebane's findings and the manner in which she went about investigating this matter?
Well, I think there's two issues here, right? The first one is that when a president appears before Parliament, he has a duty to convey the facts accurately and truthfully. And when there's an allegation of misleading Parliament, the only body that's available to investigate the matter is the Public Protector. So when people argue that this matter should have gone elsewhere, in truth, the only body that can investigate it is the Public Protector. The second is, when it comes to sealing or unsealing of records, which was then part of the discussion, I think another body must investigate that. I don't really believe that it's within the ambit of the Public Protector to do that, because it requires financial intelligence, etc., etc. So I think then in that instance, the report was almost deemed to have challenges, because fundamentally that then went into a scope of another body of government to investigate. That, the question of who elected or funded the presidency's campaign should become something of public knowledge. That must be dealt with by another body. But that the president misled Parliament, which is what I still fundamentally believe, whether it's deliberate or not, is still a matter of record. Because I asked him a simple question, he gave me one answer, and then he later felt to change it later, which I still don't think that it's correct for the president to be able to do that.
In the main, Mr. Maimane, if we simplify what you are arguing for here, because you clearly are not going to give me a straight answer about whether or not you agree with Mkhwebane's findings and the manner in which she went about, concluding her report. I've got to ask you, this is about transparency at the end of the day, and the Executive Ethics Code. We know that Amapungane are going to be a joinder in this particular argument today, and they are questioning the constitutionality of the Executive Ethics Code, which Mkhwebane says that it was violated by the president.
No, absolutely, and I think that all of these laws, the Executive Ethics Code, must be dealt with, because I think we should ask better of our politicians. It allows too much wriggle room for people to be able to cover up things, and I think more than anything, in answer, I really do believe directly there must be even the parliamentary body that deals with ethics must be able to be capacitated to deal with these matters better. We must ask better of our politicians, and in the long run, I think it's half of the reason why politicians have been discredited. I would argue strongly that questions of accountability must be better effected. And going to the Concord today, I hope the judgment isn't just about a dismissal of the Public Protector's report. That's the easy part. But the question of accountability must be sought, and we must ensure that all principals, politicians and all of them, are held accountable in the same way as all of us would be.
I'm going to latch on the word that you've just used, politicians who are discredited. And I'm going to ask you the question about why you think South Africans should look at Mkhwebane's report and look at it dispassionately, despite some of what the courts have pronounced on her competency in as far as other matters that she has investigated are concerned. Simply, why should South Africans trust that Mkhwebane did a good job here of this investigation?
Well, there are two questions. Everyone stands equal before the law, regardless of whether you're president or anybody. On the first instance, if you dispassionately look at what in fact took place, an ANC presidency was bought for over R1 billion. That is South Africa's first question. You must be able to, all of us must satisfy ourselves that if Newzroom can be bought for that amount of money, it's how we want to run our country. That's the dispassionate look. The legal argument about the Public Protector must be dealt with in that factional wars cannot be warred here. And I think the fact that the Public Protector's office still today, in how it accounts to Parliament, has still not been ironed out, shows me how much of a failure that institution is fast becoming. Because at this point, learning what we've learned, it's not about the person who holds the office, it's about how do we capacitate that office, because we can't be at the mercy as to who. We can't say 1 week it's Mkhwebane and next week it's another person, hopefully another person will do a better job. In the same way as you can't have a judge and then you say, well, another judge will do a different job in the judicial system. What we've got to do is ensure that the independence of the Public Protector is maintained both in financing, but both also institutionally in how it stands in Parliament and how it reports to Parliament. Because then in that way, in the long run, we can ultimately make sure that all reports are scrutinized not only by public officials which are in Parliament, but also South Africans have got access to it in the freest and easiest manner possible.
All right. One South Africa movement leader, Mmusi Maimane, thank you very much.